We are live.
We are live.
We are live.
Awesome. Here we go. Back again.
Back again, Focus Friday. Good morning.
Good morning, Jamaica. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody who either joins us now or joins us later. So, like, good afternoon, good evening to whoever's watching at another time.
Salutations. That's how
Salutations.
that goes,
Um,
I think.
Ramadan Kareem to those who are observing.
Mm,
That
awesome.
started earlier this week. Um, yeah,
And you're actually participating in Ramadan this year in the fast.
I am fasting for Gaza in solidarity. There was a call put out asking for folks to fast in solidarity for Gaza, and it has been interesting. It has. For real quick, if folks don't know, you eat before dawn,
Mm-hmm.
not sunrise. Not
Mm-hmm.
it's different, and then you don't eat again until after sunset, and the time expands every single day. So
Much respect to you. I know it's a discipline.
it
I've
is.
actually participated in Ramadan a few times in my life. Um, yeah, it's special to be able to do that,
Yeah.
especially for a cause. So shout out to you and everyone else who's participating in Ramadan this year. So where are we at, Jamaica?
We are building more in 2024.
Building more in 2024. Focus Friday. I know this is early, but it's raining outside. The commute for you may be a little bit
Yeah.
whatever, but it's still Focus Friday. All of us is here to have a discussion about what it means to build in 2024, build more in 2024 because we've been building since 2020.
Yes.
So let's have the discussion.
Well, I mean, one of our major focuses has always been investing in community, right?
Absolutely.
And we start in our home base.
You sign
Yeah, it does. It does. It says
communities.
invest in communities, not incarceration.
Yeah, that's right.
And our home base is Schenectady.
That's right.
And there's a couple things that are happening in Schenectady,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So where should we begin?
I mean, you want to start with housing,
I mean, you want to start with housing. You always want to start with housing.
or we want to start a Miracle on Craig Street?
Well, see, you said it like that, so
I
sounds
mean,
like
it's so interesting to see. So for you all who do not know, there's
right.
been some developments in the city of Schenectady that have been in plans for the last couple of years. We call it the main Crane corridor. Main Crane corridor.
There's so many.
Well, it's the main Crane corridor. I just getting a little tongue tied with it, but
Yes.
main Crane corridor. There's a lot of construction happening on Crane. Two separate projects, two separate building housing projects are being developed right now around the business district of Crane.
Yep.
Just before you get to Maine and you get the bank there, you've got just a bunch of shops.
The
Used to be a fish
library.
fry. The library is there, which would be new construction for us old head Schenectady folks.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I actually drove by there yesterday, man, and it looked interesting. Obviously, it's not complete.
Right.
I don't know how many apartments will be inside each of those places, but for many years, that particular section had suffered through the economic downturns
Yeah.
of
For
the
sure.
city, and it looks as if this will be an opportunity for folks to have quality housing in those apartments. This is what we're hoping for,
Right.
right? Mind you, we're
Right.
hoping for this
Yeah.
because riding through that section, I still didn't see many workers from Schenectady or many black and brown workers working on the
Right.
site, unfortunately.
Which is an
Um,
ongoing problem that you've discussed in the past. That
that's
every
right.
time a new project goes up in the city of Schenectady, it's not folks from Schenectady that are earning those high-paying wages
Yeah,
to build and then invest back into our community.
that's right.
That money's being taken to other places.
Yeah.
Um, I did drive by last week
Okay.
and I saw the construction, um, and I had a similar thought: who gets to live there?
Hmm.
What's the rent
Hmm.
going to cost?
Hmm.
How many different subsidized units will there be? These are the things that definitely folks in the community want to know. It is a direct corridor. It basically is the line, I think, between Mount Pleasant and Hamilton Hill,
Hmm.
right? You cross the bridge, you
Hmm.
get right over there to Crane Street. That is Mount Pleasant, but you just look look down the road and it's Hamilton Hill. So it
Yeah.
definitely is an opportunity for folks in multiple neighborhoods if they're looking for housing.
No, that's right. But my fear is always that we will, have, in these neighborhoods, the analogy for me is like we've painted the car, we've shined up the rims, but we didn't do anything to repair the busted engine. And what will happen in 5, 10, 15 years if we're not addressing the economic opportunities of the community where those houses are, where those apartments are placed, right? We need to do
Yeah.
more than just make it look pretty. I like, hey, I'm glad that it is gonna, look better in that corridor, but without doing something to address the conditions in the neighborhood, the conditions of lack of job opportunities, lack of actually job opportunities that pay a livable wage, right? I think that we'll find ourselves in a similar situation with the area either getting run down or being gentrified, right?
Right, right.
So that's a problem.
Folks coming in, we got folks already here that need housing, but instead folks come in from other places to live here because they have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And you're right, the cycle of poverty that many families have faced for generations continues. In the city of Schenectady, almost 80% of the students that attend our schools um, qualify for free and reduced lunches.
Hmm.
It's more than 70% that are living in poverty.
Wow.
So those individuals not given an opportunity, like just saying, hey, because you're poor, you don't have to pay so much for rent, means you have to stay poor to stay in that building,
Yeah.
as opposed to how are we offering supports to break the cycle
Yeah.
so folks can build a savings,
Yeah.
learn how to save money, and do those things that are necessary to change your overall conditions.
That issue that you're talking about is a pretty big one almost everywhere, where you don't make enough to receive some of the support that you may need, and you also don't make enough to actually continue
Yep.
to afford
Yep.
the things you need, and you're just in that place. And there's actually a term for it, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll come back to it hopefully if it comes back to me. So you have that housing opportunity on Crane that will probably come online sometime this year. I'm thinking,
You think
hopefully.
they're gonna build it that fast?
I mean, they've got a lot of it up. I mean, you
Okay.
see how fast they put up Cora House, which is a new transitional housing on State Street,
Right.
which that
Was
kind of went up pretty quick
right, a
once they got the
nonprofit.
grounds.
Right, a nonprofit
Yeah. Then,
for people who are homeless. Like,
mm,
yeah. Hmm.
so we also have development housing on Strong Street, which we've already kind of talked about. Um,
But that's different, right?
it's a little bit
A
different because
little bit.
it's about home ownership.
Yes.
So you have affordable housing happening on Crane. You have home ownership opportunities happening on Strong Street through UIK in partnership with the city and others to bring that to the people. If folks in Schenectady, it's around that strong Summit Ave, Strong Street corner where you come around. It has that overlook over downtown Schenectady and the mountains in the distance.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any progress on that.
No,
I haven't
no.
seen any progress on that. Like I don't know where that project sits today, but it's supposedly they've got a lot of applications. We held an event
Yes.
at Sikkim.
October of last year.
Had a whole conversation about what this opportunity was going to be for folks. Applications were handed out. People
Yes.
filled out applications. A lot of conversation. We're still waiting to see where that's going to be this year. I'm not even sure if they broke ground
I
over
haven't
there yet.
seen any construction work over there, but I really exciting for that particular project. Again, is the goal was for low to middle income families.
Hmm.
It is part of that wealth development
Yeah,
because for what you're paying in rent, you could have a
you
mortgage.
could have a mortgage. You could own your own.
You could actually own a home, and
Yeah.
then if you have children, pass it on to your children. There's that family wealth that is built that many other families of other persuasions
Hmm.
have had access and opportunity to for a very long time. And so it does continue, and we will be looking for an update. Also, heads up for anyone that's not already on our email list. If you see in the comments, it says, what do you want to build in 2024? You click that link, you can join our email list. It also gives you an opportunity to let us know what are the things you want to work on, right? So if you're interested in housing, then you let us know and we'll make sure to follow up with you if you're interested in political education or voter registration, because voter registration is happening right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Then you can be a part of that as well. But click the link. Even if you're already on our email list, you can put your zip code in
Yeah,
and we'll know the difference between Schenectady and Albany, because Schenectady, Albany, we're kind of all over the capital region.
that's right.
We want to make sure you get the information that's relevant to you. Um,
Yeah, it's home.
yeah,
It's home.
it is.
So I'm thinking about as I look at, we have a couple of different things in the lineup to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I want to jump to because I think it connects to the next thing I want to talk about. The 4 year anniversary
Yeah,
of Breonna Taylor,
earlier this week.
and what that means, you know, in context of like where we are today.
Yeah.
Right. So for those that and talking about Breonna Taylor, I don't want to assume that everyone knows who Breonna Taylor is. That it was a name that was known across the world,
Yeah.
um, similar to George Floyd. Her anniversary just passed. The anniversary of her murder actually
Yeah.
just passed a couple of days ago.
The 13th.
And when you look at where we're at today, after all of the movement work that has happened to get justice for Breonna and justice for any other individual that has been harmed by police or harmed by white supremacists. I'm thinking about Trayvon, which is February, and Trayvon has
Yep.
also got an anniversary that's not too long
Yeah.
in the past. And you look at kind of the context of where we are today, like what has changed? Have we moved? Have we progressed? Have we moved forward?
I think that we see different elements of change in different locations depending on where you are and what you're asking for, right? The communities that have been calling for justice for Breonna Taylor are still calling for justice, right?
Yeah,
Um, those that are calling for justice for Trayvon Martin. I mean, Florida is a whole hot mess. That's just, there's so many things,
yeah,
right? Um, Locally though, here in the capital region, we do have wins, right? 2020, we kicked it off. We started on housing. Let's not forget, we started on housing and we moved because of what was happening and what the community called for, and because we have that same history of police brutality in Schenectady, in Albany, in Troy, in Saratoga. And folks were like, we need to talk about this because it's still happening here.
yeah,
And let's be clear, it's still happening here. Um, but at the same time, one of the things that I'm proud of is we pushed and pushed and pushed. We had 13 demands, and there were things that were implemented.
yeah,
Schenectady, for the first time, has a line item in the police budget for anti racism training. That's a step. What implementation looked like, us getting a report back about how many officers received anti-racism training, did the anti-racism training ever happen, is it still in development, that's to be seen. But it was still absolutely a win to be proud of, that the money was set aside just to do it. And Albany, that win is huge.
yeah. Funding for the CPRB,
Yep.
funding that allowed them to do to have separate investigations,
Absolutely.
independent investigations,
Yes.
excuse me,
Yeah.
from the one conducted by the APD.
Yep.
And that brings us to a topic last night. That investigation came to its conclusion with a hearing between CPRB representatives, also the third party investigators,
Mm-hmm.
and many in the community that were impacted by what happened, and also the chief and some of his department leads were in attendance last night to have a discussion about the findings of the CPRB. And if you want me to carry
I
want me to
would
carry the
love for you to
story.
carry the story.
All right. So last night, the CPRB discussion laid out a few, I think, very interesting points. One of which I'll start off with the OPS, which is the Office of Professional Standards investigation versus the investigation by the third party were completely different.
Wow.
right? Absolutely different in their findings, which is really ridiculous, and I think speaks to some of the issues with policing police, right?
Wait, say
Right?
it again.
Police policing police
Yeah,
doesn't
that
make a
part.
lot of sense
No,
when you're not held accountable any other way, but
exactly.
through your own department. Because obviously there's all these potentials for bias and different perspectives that aren't really helpful when you're talking about being critical about what you've done wrong,
Right.
right? So OPS's findings basically said um, there's nothing to see here. Basically, through all the allegations, there's nothing to see here.
Surprise.
From the instance, so maybe we should be reminding people exactly what happened. There was a march from Townsend Park
Mm-hmm.
that was
It was a
that
protest
was it was a protest
against police
that
brutality.
that walked to downtown to third state to
Police
the
station.
police station on Arch Street.
Yep.
Um, was wrapped around that police station and I haven't heard this a lot, was supposed to continue on from there,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't planned out to actually stop at the police station,
Yeah.
but at the police station they're met by officers who are working there. There's a little bit of some back and forth. At some point, one of the protesters has a bullhorn shoved into her face so hard that her lip is lacerated
Yeah.
and her teeth are chipped.
Yeah.
And it's something that was spoke about that night. And from there, there's pepper spray, bear mace that's been expired that are used on several of the protesters.
Yeah.
So the protesters decided to stay and camp out to bring the community together
Yep.
in acknowledgement of what happened, the protests that they were originally part of, and then the protests about what happened to many of the protesters after that confrontation with the police and at their department door, right? On
Yep.
the outside, they're on the outside. The police are on the inside of the building.
Yeah.
So they camped out there for 8 days, 7 or 8 days until I think it was the 14th to the 22nd.
Yep.
When the police came in and destroyed what the encampment was, threw away all the property, slammed people to the ground, dragged people away.
There were arrests.
Handcuffed.
There were secret arrests.
There were secret arrests. It was a whole melee. It was a whole thing. And to date, no one has been held accountable for what has happened. Lieutenant Anderson or Captain Anderson, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, was one of the focal points of what happened.
Right.
And he still works for the police force, despite having allegations of all kinds of misconduct throughout his career.
Right. It's not just this instance.
It's not just this instance, but this instance
which we find all the time. Yes.
Kind of what he was all about.
Don't forget.
What's that?
They covered their name badges.
Covered the name badges.
Which is illegal.
Wore Blue Lives
Matter stickers on yes.
Either through a mask, on the shield,
yep.
etc.
Very much, many of them looked very similar to the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is absolutely a tactic of intimidation.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting to see how, because I actually was there and I got to witness a lot of what happened on the ground and you really, kind of see, and you've had the moment you've seen kind of what it was.
Yeah.
They weren't like many of the protesters weren't there to go to blows with the police,
no.
right? They were there in a nonviolent protest. Just basically standing up for what was right.
I would say none of the protesters showed up to partake in violent activities. Mm-hmm. They were being loud, mm-hmm. and their voices, the loudness of their voices, mm-hmm. was retaliated with physical violence.
What you used to say? Peaceful don't mean...
Peaceful don't mean quiet. Peaceful don't mean quiet. It is a peaceful protest. It don't mean quiet. We loud as hell.
That's right.
So what did the new report say?
So the new report basically,
the independent
report basically called out the police for much of the misconduct, called out the police for covering their badges, called out the police for for what happened to the aggressiveness
Mm-hmm.
and a use of force that they used on the protesters. Called them out for destroying thousands of dollars worth of property.
Yeah.
Called them out for making false arrests
Yep.
on protesters. So it was striking that they were in complete opposition to each other. And this is a third, mind you, this is a third party entity that's not even from this area. This is
Right.
not some folks
Right.
that have any skin in the game per se
Right.
to be intentionally biased about anything.
We didn't do the investigation.
Exactly. So it's like, when you look at kind of what happened, what the reports kind of revealed, it really I think, puts a spotlight on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the misconduct of the OPS in its investigation
Yep.
and coming away with nothing. How could you come away saying that nothing wrong happened here?
Well, that's a
Like, when
rhetorical
you think
question,
about that, no,
right?
I'm serious. Like,
Because
you're the OPS, the Office of Professional Standards. Once again, Office of Professional Standards.
professional standards of police.
What standards of professionalism are you saying weren't violated in this instance? It's a bit. I think they need to be investigated now for their conclusions in the report,
But
right?
we do know, what'd you say, is police policing the police.
Yeah.
And this, I hope, continues to shine the light on all internal investigations to police departments across the greater capital region and beyond.
Mm,
Some places don't even have a CPRB.
yeah.
Those that do, Schenectady, have no power.
Mm,
I sat on the CPRB for a minute here in the
okay.
city of Schenectady. And if there was a complaint, you received one, um, the information of the investigation by the Schenectady Police Department
Mm-hmm.
that said unfounded,
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of things redacted. You could not see the file of the officer being accused. So this was pre the rollback of 50A.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't see whether or not they had any other complaints, how many complaints, if there's any disciplinary actions. You couldn't see the history of the officer. Now, anyone can foil the history of an officer. We fought that case here in Schenectady as well, won that one. But sitting on the CPRB, redacted files, the police said unfounded. What are you asking me then? I'm sitting here looking at a redacted file. You told me it's unfounded. I have no investigative powers. There is no budget for the Schenectady CPRB.
Mm-hmm.
It really is just, hey, we showed somebody else.
That's it. We're checking the box.
And even if we were to say, we think this deserves further investigation, who has complete oversight? Chief Clifford.
The chief of police.
Chief of police, who has said on the record, this is my police department. I'm going to decide what happens with my police department.
Yeah.
That was when we were building the, what is it, the rejuvenation or reinvention of, policing, reimagining policing. So what faith does the community have of accountability without external oversight when the local CPRB, even if there is one in a locality, has no power to investigate on their own, independent, and simply are accepting or even not accepting the report given from the police department?
I mean, we end up with the results that we have, right?
Right.
We have, little to no accountability in the way that we think is actually effective. I'm sure at the department they have their own set of, consequences and rules that for them this is enough, right? And for us, we're like, wait a minute, no, we have, and we probably can't get into it in this conversation, but there are several stories coming out of the city of Schenectady.
Yes.
Of
We will have a
interactions
separate
with our
call.
police that
Yeah.
are abusive,
Absolutely.
both verbally and physically.
Yes.
I've talked to a brother recently who has some 14th and Fourth Amendment
Violations.
violations that he feels that happened to him.
Yes.
Fourth Amendment, 14th Amendment is due process. Fourth Amendment is our protections against illegal search and seizure. That's our constitutional rights. And this is not the only case. We've had several up to
Yes.
this point that are coming out. So, you know, there's some that's happening, and without having um, some checks and balances from the community.
Right.
So here's the thing. Like, here's the thing. What's
Yep.
interesting? What's interesting to me, um, and we talk about this a lot. That many of us we have similar goals, different ways of getting there.
Yes.
Right? We got similar goals, but different ways of getting there. If that's true, and in good faith, these conversations would be a lot, I think, simpler
Yes.
than what they are, right?
Yeah.
Because if you want this community to thrive and you want to show the community that you're doing everything that you need to make sure all residents are protected, all
Against
residents
everyone.
are against everyone, then why would these conversations be so hard? Why would we not? Why wouldn't there be the type of oversight necessary in order to ensure that when there are bad actors, right, that these things would be addressed in a very public and clear way so that the community has confidence, right, that they are protected
Right.
by those that are supposed to be in charge. I mean, I have an answer for you, but I'm
Right.
really just pitching that to you
But,
because I want you to.
well, because we know the answer. It's an institution that was founded on racism and white supremacy. That to admit its flaws is to build a case against itself,
Mm,
and it will indubitably remove funds from its coffers.
mhm,
So instead of more money and more police, if we actually are able to critically examine the flaws within the system and say, wow, that's really not working. Oh, look, these people really were harmed. Wow, it's been happening this entire time. Maybe we should be doing something else.
yeah.
That's a diversion of funds to a new opportunity that actually keeps people safe. Again, we're building more in 2024. We already know this because more than 300 Black residents in the city of Schenectady
Hmm.
said that safety was important to them, and that safety had all of these lists of things that included, and at the bottom of the list, it wasn't zero, but it was at the bottom of the list, was policing, with a lot of feedback about how they cause harm, how they make it unsafe. But to have those conversations, people need to be brave and to imagine outside of the box of what it looks like to build a safe community for everyone while
Yeah.
doing something different.
People need options.
Options.
People need options.
Yep. Better. Better.
I mean, look, I don't think that there's many that would disagree that people having the things they need, having a safe and stable environment, whether, a place to go home to,
Mm-hmm.
a job or a business or a field of work that allows a person to be empowered and feel connected and like those things change a community on its own. You can't continue to, I think, invest in third party interference, third party defense, third party
Right.
caging in order to like really bring communities together because communities, I think I'm about to start getting into some academics on it, but I won't today because we don't have all that time. But I would just say that communities, um, the safest communities and we'll just use the United States of America as an
Mm-hmm.
example, but the safest communities here,
Have,
safest communities in our state, do not have a ton of police.
oh,
But what
no,
they
they do
do
not.
have is a community of people who have much of what they need, whether it's food to eat, clothes on their back, a place to live, and a community or a field of work that is fulfilling in their life and pays a livable wage Like those communities are safe, and if anyone listening to me that lives in those communities, you know exactly what
You
I'm
know,
talking about.
they
So
have
we're not talking about some alien place and
no.
time or some reinvention
It's
of
not a
anything.
utopia that we can't imagine.
No, it's something that already exists, and this is kind of what I like to point to.
Yeah.
You know, when we have these conversations, it's like we don't get it out of your head that this is some unimaginable place where we don't have as you know we're not spending as much to do all this policing. We're just spending to make sure people have the things they need.
Access and opportunity
Yeah,
to the programs and services necessary to thrive as opposed to struggling to survive.
yeah,
And I would say it is the difference between a neighborhood and a community.
hmm,
Because within any neighborhood, there could be multiple communities. It's groups of individuals that are collectively working together that have a shared bond from either their demographics in some way, if it's just their zip code or their culture or their religion, but that they see themselves as working collectively together, as opposed to if I have a problem with my neighbor,
hmm,
I can't talk to them. I should pick up the phone and call the police.
yeah,
And the police themselves, Chief Clifford has said he gets calls that he shouldn't, that they are things that he should not have to deal with. And I agree
hmm,
that if we invest in our communities and actually build those communities of folks speaking to each other and seeing each other with that kind of bond and working collectively together, he ain't going to get that many calls because I could actually, like I would, Amira, this is what happened.
yeah,
Your child broke my window. Let's talk about it. I got it on my ring cam. I'm not trying to do anything crazy. How can we work out that I can get the window fixed? Because what you want is the window fixed. You want to repair the window, but also repair the relationship. The police do not do that. Putting somebody in jail don't get your window fixed. Because while they're sitting in county, they've lost their job, they've lost their housing, so they don't have access to resources to fix your window.
hmm,
But if they stayed in the community, then there's that opportunity to not just get your window fixed, but maybe that child's not going to break another window because, hey, listen, let's go to the park next time. Let's not
yeah,
do this.
yeah.
Like, there's all of these opportunities that happen other places. People talk to their neighbors. They know who's there. Hey, I saw there's a package on your porch. Would you like me to, take it in my house for you and I'll wait for you to get home? People do that. It's possible for us to build these thriving communities, and it's the work that we continue to do that I'm proud of, because there is continuing violence, there is continuing harm, and it happens in all aspects between people and between police and the people they're supposed to protect.
No, they're absolutely right. I would. I mean, I think we've got a lot to talk about, and stay tuned
Stay
for
tuned.
more Focus Fridays and discussions
Yes, but before we
that we get
go,
deep into. What's up?
because we are very much committed to what are those access and opportunity moments for people to build on their own self-knowledge.
Yeah.
um isn't there like some financial literacy thing that's coming up? We're going to send it out by email, so if you're not on our
Oh,
email list, get on our email list.
absolutely. A group, You Inc. Wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the Tatums,
Yep.
Elroy and Alicia, fabulous family, super sharp. They will be having or hosting some financial literacy trainings at the Schenectady Library. The main branch, Phillipsborn? No. What's the name?
Phyllis Bourne is on State Street.
But right here.
um Karen,
So the main
the
branch
main
library
branch,
here,
it's literally up the street
downtown.
from the office.
Interestingly, enough, right next door to the police department. So, but really nice place. They'll be hosting like 5 or 6 weeks of training and financial literacy. Please, please, please look into your emails. Check out those dates. It starts in April.
Yep.
I don't know the sure of the day off the top of my head. But I think that I spoke with Elroy on several occasions. He's definitely assisted me in looking at some of how I and putting money to the side, really structuring my finances, and giving me a bit more control kind of
Right.
over what I do with my money. And I think we all could, learn a
Benefit.
bit more and
Yes.
figure out how to build our credit, have figure out how we can navigate this financial system as much as possible to the best of our ability,
Right.
right? To get what we can, out of it, so we're not slipping because, we have responsibility for that as well,
Yes.
right? To do what we can with what we have.
Indeed.
So take the time to do it. It's free. It's free training. Show up. Everyone's a wonderful instructor.
Tatum's are awesome.
Yeah, the Tatum's are awesome.
They
So
are.
shout out to the Tatum. You Inc. Wealth,
Yes.
headed to the Schenectady Main Branch Library to give these classes. So
Right. So if you're not on the email list, get on the email list. We'll be sure to be sharing the information out. We also, if we get flyers, we post it on our social media page. You can check our link tree for additional information.
yeah,
And if you know of community programs and services that are happening that you think would be beneficial to other folks, share it with us. Tell us. We can't possibly be everywhere all the time. None of us can. But if each of us takes a moment to share that information, then more of us will know what's happening. That's why we do this work. It's why we have this conversation on Focus Fridays, and why we'll continue to have it. Join the email list. Follow us on social media. Anything else?
special prayers to Baby Halo. Everyone is connected. You remember this just happened not too long ago.
Yes.
Young baby is no longer here.
Yes.
Um, you know, our prayers go out to Halo and the family, and our prayers go out to Ryan Gaynor and his family in California, autistic young brother who was murdered
By
by the
police.
police,
Yeah.
and the 911 call, the disturbance at the house.
A known
He
history
had
of
already
there being an
he had
autistic
already
child.
calmed down. There was a known history, and yeah. So just um, many prayers from all of us to the families
And the
of
stories we
those we
don't
have
know,
lost, and the stories we don't know. You're
because
right.
there are definitely folks hurting in our communities that need somebody. So if you know someone's hurting, shoot them a text, give them a call, just be like, hey, I just want to check on you. And as always, we work diligently to raise the voices of the folks in Palestine, for there to be a free Palestine, and for those individuals to have food and shelter and water and an immediate and permanent ceasefire.
Yeah. Yeah.
Until next time, y'all.
Peace.
Laters.